Good day, familia. Happy Good Friday. This is your host, Ray Collazo, and you're watching and listening to Bomba Live, the talk show you've been waiting for your entire life. And I hope to have a moment to talk to you about Good Friday. And I think it's actually kind of appropriate that we're having this conversation today. I certainly didn't plan on having a podcast going into a holiday weekend. We already released an episode this week, and I encourage you to follow it and listen to it. You can watch it on our Bomba Live YouTube page as well as on our Found in Translation audio podcast feed, which you can find on all audio podcast players. Anywhere you get a podcast, Found in Translation, the Bomba Live content is on there. And so we had a conversation about, one of the obvious big headlines, which was the Trump indictment by the Manhattan District Attorney this week. And I thought we'd all kind of go into the weekend peacefully. This being for in the Christian calendar and the Jewish calendar, a very holy week. I believe we're also near, so just obviously for many faiths traditions, a very important time and a somber time and a time usually kind of wind it down with work stuff and talking about these things. But I was compelled to get on here and give you all a few minutes about what's taken place in Tennessee over the last 24 hours. So basically, I think you all are because it has implications well beyond the state of Tennessee, and it's something we have to take a moment to understand what's happening. And the fact is, and I keep saying this, that we're certainly all going to have to get off the sidelines to save our country and from this fascistic encroachment in our democracy with a very, very strong racist tinge. So in the aftermath of the terrible shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, mass shooting, the latest mass shooting um, that's stricken our country and really put a fine point on the fact we have a gun violence crisis in this country that our leadership is wholly uh, not having the courage to address in the way they need to. And so we have to be the heroes in our own stories, family, as these three brave folks have done in stepping it up. And so in the aftermath of that, where we lost six people, including three small children, there has been a youth movement led largely by young people in Tennessee and that has gone in large, courageous voices to the halls of the Tennessee State Capitol in Nashville, demanding action, demanding that the Tennessee legislature and the Tennessee governor take serious, bold action to prevent people that have no business carrying around and possessing and arming themselves with weapons of mass destruction like an AR-15 from being able to access it and doing terrible things like they did in Nashville, Tennessee last week. And so, in the midst of that exuberant, youthful protest, these three members of the Tennessee State Legislature, State Representative Justin Pearson, State Representative Justin Jones, and State Representative Gloria Johnson, expressed themselves and demanded to be heard in the bowels of the Tennessee State House and have the voices of these young people and these protesters heard in the midst of the debate around what should be done. And it was very clear that the Republicans that dominate the state legislature were not going to do anything and are not planning on doing anything. So they had something to say about that. And so in response to these three duly elected members of the state house, including in the case of State Representative Gloria Johnson, someone that was a former school teacher that was the victim of a mass shooting in her school as a school teacher and being there and dealing with the trauma of seeing her children, her students frightened, and I believe one student got shot at that day. That the how the Republican leadership of the state legislature responded to this vigorous debate and this call by their colleagues for us to do something serious about this. They proceeded to uh, proceed with expelling their colleagues for saying that they were out of order and not following the rules of decorum in the state legislature. And so what proceeded to take place this evening was the two young African American Democratic State House members Representatives Pearson and Jones were expelled, and Representative Johnson, a white woman, was survived the vote by one vote. And so obviously, this unprecedented expulsion by members of your body, expelling people that were duly elected by voters and by citizens of Tennessee, and failing to not expel the one non-black person of the Tennessee Three really speaks to you know how much of a racial component there is to this. It's so ironic because the three of them, including the two young black state reps, the Justin Pearson, Justin Jones, are there alongside largely white children who are not only the victims of this latest incident in Nashville, being a very elite Christian school, largely white from all accounts, but the overwhelming amount of protesters were young white children, young people, and white people in the halls of Nashville and state capitol. So the irony of this, that the Tennessee state representatives, the Tennessee Republican legislators, in their response to seeing these three people, including two young black people and a former school teacher, supporting these children, largely white, their response to that was to expel them because the whole situation made them feel uncomfortable, particularly these very courageous, very articulate, very very inspiring two young African American representatives, Jones and Pearson, including Gloria Johnson, who's also very inspiring. So this is I wanted to share a minute about this because I, look, and I know you're worried about the cookout Sunday and everyone looking cute with their bonnets and their Sunday best on Easter, and I understand that. But you have to understand that our democracy is under attack. And so when you have a situation where a political uh, a political body like a state legislature feels they have the power to just kick out members they don't like, who are duly elected, who have every right to be there like anyone else, just because they're uncomfortable with these young black state legislators being unapologetically being leaders unapologetically on behalf of their constituency, who is largely African Americans in Nashville and in Memphis. um, you know, they literally kick them out of their jobs. And this is a trend that we're seeing, not just with the rhetoric of Trump. Trump is obviously sort of the band leader of this fascist movement, but what you see what's happening in Tennessee, what you see what's happening in Florida, Governor DeSantis is not only attacking the LGBT community, African American community. There's a bill that's being debated that would basically, you could be arrested for having an undocumented person in your car, or living with them, or associating with them. He just signed a bill to make it basically anyone can walk around with a gun in Florida now, openly. And now he just signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. Most women don't know they're pregnant well beyond 6 weeks. I don't know if he's ever heard of missing a period, this guy. So this is, fascist, extreme right wing policies that are being implemented on a state level that potentially could be implemented on a national level, depending on the 2024 elections go, and that clearly would set back people of color, women, young people, and poor people even further. And the shame of this whole thing is that all these three people are trying to do, the Tennessee Three, is trying to work together, work all of us to come up with common sense, bold policies that would protect everybody. Pearson and Jones aren't just saying we just want gun control and safer streets for black people in Memphis and Nashville. We want streets for everybody. So they're defending the children of these Republican legislatures. More, how shameful are these people that they would rather continue to see their community in danger and their children in danger than stand up to the gun lobby and this cult of not just fascism, but this cult that is misunderstands and is feels so vulnerable that somehow the fact that our country is becoming more diverse and women are having a stronger place in our society, and that we're just evolving, in some ways naturally, that they feel like on some level that they'll be left out, and to the point where they would rather see the country regress than try to figure out a way to live in equity and harmony with their more diverse neighbors and communities. And it's really sad, and it's really sad. And I just wanted people to understand the gravity of the situation. It's not just, oh wow, that's a crazy thing. That's a shame what happened to those two young black guys. It has ramifications well beyond Tennessee. It has ramifications well beyond the obvious racial element to it, even though that is not a small thing. The fact that we're seeing sort of Jim Crow, not just rhetorically, but in policy, coming back in our country, particularly in the South. But, the leading candidate right now for president of the United States, the leading two candidates, the ones that have virtually all the support in the Republican Party right now to be the Republican nominee for president, former President Trump and Florida Governor DeSantis, are openly spouting hateful rhetoric, and implementing policies and advocating for policies that are just there to put us in our place. And that's really ultimately what the theme and the message of this expulsion of these two brave young state legislators, and the continuing policies being pushed by the Republican Party on a national and state level, is really, that's what this is about. They want to put us in our place. And if you're sitting there as a conservative Latino somewhere in Florida, or saying, well, this is not really going to infect me, well, wait until your family is impacted by this. And by the way, President Trump is going to demonize not just the African American district attorneys in Fulton County in Manhattan, but the Colombian American judge, the immigrant Latino judge who has impeccable credentials and is a man of great ethics and character. He's going to besmirch his reputation and is literally threatening his family, including his daughter. So if you think you're immune and your community's immune because you live in Doral, or you live in a certain zip code, and you feel like you're above it all, think again. And so uh, I want to take a quick break and then talk about this season and a little bit about some reflections as we approach this Easter holiday. Thank you for joining Bomba Live to talk to you and waiting for your whole life. I'm usually a lot more giddy, but we got to talk about it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be right back. Let's hear from Wilmar Vasquez. Wilmar Vasquez was on the show recently, and she's along with many very brave Puerto Rican activists who have campamentos throughout the coastal areas of the island, advocating that our public beaches remain to have access to, because las playas son del pueblo in Puerto Rico. Let's hear from Wilmar what's at stake for the island, and we'll be right back on Bomba Live, the talk show waiting for your whole life.
Like they all know, even though we don't want it to be like this, we don't want it to turn violent, we don't want it to get to this level of either life or death, but I feel we all know what we're risking here, and it's so much worth, like, each of our life. This is bigger than any of us. It's Puerto Rico, it's our land. And even if we have to sacrifice our own bodies to protect it, we're willing to do it if the Puerto Rican government doesn't do it.
Welcome back to Bomba Live, the talk show for your whole life. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your host, Ray Collazo. Please follow Bomba Live on all our social media platforms, as well as on YouTube, including YouTube. And you can catch the Bomba Live audio podcast anywhere you can find a podcast on our Fountain Translation audio podcast feed. Again, there's Ray Collazo. It's Easter season. And, when I was growing up, I grew up like quintessential Latinos Catholic school boy. I think I went to Baptist preschool, because that's our sort of spiritual advisor, Theo. Roger Zepernick ran the school. Roger was the most Puerto Rican white man you've ever met in your entire life. And We can never talk enough about Roger, what he's done for our family and in the Philadelphia, Puerto Rican Latino community. But and then I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade. And so, and Stations of the Cross, Altar Boy, Reader, you know, you name it. And so this was always like a really special time, because it was really when, as a Catholic school young person, and for Catholics, you really got to spend the most time diving into your spirituality, with the various ceremonies associated with Catholicism and the Stations of the Cross, and sort of chronicling, uh, starting Palm Sunday and through this season, Lent season, sort of the journey of Jesus from, being at one point celebrated in his community to being ostracized and basically executed by the powers that be, and then eventually rising again and dying for our sins and rising again on Sunday, Easter Sunday. And so, it is a time, even though I certainly am not as much of a churchgoer as I used to be, but I'm still I live my life, I try to live my life living by those principles that I was taught as a Catholic school kid, growing up. And, what's so interesting about kind of thinking about how that relates to our work and what's happening in this moment is that this is what happened to Jesus. That he spoke up for his truth. And so, and that included the truth of the least amongst us. Jesus hung out with, the dock workers, the people that probably would have received as the gang members of his day. He hung out with sex workers. He had, he came from humble means. His dad was a carpenter. He was a carpenter. His mom was a young mom. You could argue, depending how you look at it, a single mom, named Maria. And, he, you know, Jesus would have been the first one there today with those young people protesting in Nashville. And, I could be wrong. It just could be my interpretation of the Bible. But that's always kind of the guiding force in my life. And that, and I think it relates to my personal journey over the last year or so. Two things have kind of dominated the headlines in terms of my life and in my own personal journey. One is that, I'm almost a year into uh, recovery from Guillain-Barré, and so well, with, without getting to the whole long story, Guillain-Barré is like this funky nerve condition that attacks your nerves. And the good thing about it is that, like myself, 95, 98% of the time, as long as you're able to get the proper treatment on the front end, within a year, you're pretty much back to normal, and that's basically what's happened to me. I couldn't walk for 3 days. I needed, for about 4 or 5 months. I needed canes and walkers, and I would say in the last 2 months, I've been feeling pretty close to myself, and in some ways better, because, and ironic, this was a wake up call for me. God gave me another chance. So I'm generally taking better care of myself, particularly in the area of exercise. So that's, kind of what was the lesson and the emotional and the psychological process I went through, trying to understand what lessons I was trying to get out of this, trying to see if I had the strength to survive it, trying to see if, and learning a lot of lessons around patience, around um, trying to trying to understand the blessing in everything God puts in front of you, regardless of what it seems like immediately, and despite the challenges, and in trying to come out of it stronger physically, which has been a big part of my journey this past year, emotionally, spiritually, as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a brother, and as a friend. And I don't know if I've accomplished those things, but trying to focus on what this all means. This random nerve condition, that who knows how I got it, And I went from having one day about a year ago, some tingling in my hands to a week later not being able to walk for 3 days. So that's one headline, and that's one journey. And then the other journey, which is related to it, is this is that, really feeling like I was building some momentum at that moment, specifically right around this time last year, to take this project to the next level. And then, having to stop everything I'm doing to take care of my health, because that's priority number one. And so, I've gone through a lot of, I've had to humble myself, particularly over the last, few months leading during the Lent season, because my frustration has come from, you know, not not being on, not having a Netflix special, and really wanting to do it bigger and grander, and just, kind of, being cranky, being not particularly grateful about the journey of this project. And kind of having this attitude, well, if I can't do it big and bold and incredible and have producers and lighting and makeup, I ain't gonna do it. And what the last, in particular, what the last 30 to 45 days has taught me, leading up to the anniversary of me contracting this illness, is that, you have to appreciate this journey, as many ups and downs as there's been. And maybe there certainly is a reason why I don't have, you know, the production deal yet. Um, and uh, and I have to understand that the most important thing with this journey, I think this is the answer, is what God's trying to tell me. Maybe I'm wrong, but that the most important part of this journey is not the grandiosity of the production value of the content. It's who benefits and how they benefit from it, whether they're on the show as part of my team of collaborators or a guest, or whoever's watching and listening, whether it's me or, highly likely someone else on the show who's got more to say and more profound and more inspiring and cooler. Um, at the end of the day, if one person gets a little more inspired by this rant around getting more involved in standing with the Tennessee Three or in the gun violence, gun safety movement, or maybe go to church a little bit often, and it's all worth it. Then it's all worth it, and the 10-year anniversary of the show is coming up, and many of you are going to be a part of that. And I've reached out to many people about how we're going to figure creatively to do it. But that's kind of, while I whined privately for the most part, um, about not having what I truly want resource wise to do this, I wasn't sharing my gift. And that's not what God wants me to do. God didn't put me on this earth not to share this. It ain't for everybody. That's okay. Last time I checked, not everybody watches Jimmy Fallon. He's doing quite fine. So, and I'm really compelled to do this. So I need to listen to God. And God is telling me right now, you don't have it like that yet. Maybe I haven't prayed for it enough, or maybe I need to go to church more, or maybe I have to humble myself more, or maybe I have to work harder for it. I don't know the answer, but I do know that there's a reason, and I have to understand that I don't know the reason right now, but I have clarity. 10 months ago, when I was walking around like an old man with a walker and feeling really crappy about myself on a lot of levels, um, I didn't know the purpose, but I had to trust that there was a purpose, and that I would find out in due time, on God's timeline, what the purpose was. And that's exactly what happened. And I have to do that now for this, because I seriously doubt that God put this dream and this vision of what I know this is going to become eventually in my mind and doesn't take it away. And fam, can I tell you, it ain't been in my mind 10 years. In reality, it's been in my mind 40, almost 40. And I've always wanted to be Johnny Carson, dog. And that's the truth. And it's for the yes, for the fam and my parents and the Latino community in Philly. And it's all for all those things. Don Rafa, it's all that. It's all those things. But coño, part of it is para Johnny to represent that legacy. As odd as that sounds, it is. Y cuando yo estaba en Hollywood, I was like, okay, me siento cómodo aquí porque el papá de los podcasters, la cultura de nosotros, broadcasters, people with these things, the godfather of them all, esta es la tierra de él. Me siento cómodo aquí porque esta es la tierra de Johnny. I swear to God. Yo estaba en Wilshire Boulevard thinking that. So why, as ridiculous as that is, because I'm ridiculous on some level with it. I know my friends know I'm obnoxious about all this stuff. Pero yo no pongo eso en mi mente para nada. Oh, I just want you to be crazy. You know, there's something about this, and I need to do it. And I need to share it, and I need to involve y'all in it. You're going to be in it next week. There will be an episode released. I was going to do it this week, and I apologize to my California collaborators because all this stuff with Trump and Easter came up, and the Tennessee Three who have to support, and we had to mention. So they will be. I'll be releasing another episode we taped in LA recently with some of my special LA live Bomba live episodes with my host Karina Martinez and some of our other special guests while we were out in Los Angeles. This episode you're going to enjoy it. It's really talking about the LA life and some of the, just being part of the vibe out in LA. So you'll see me kind of doing it West Coast style. And I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful Easter holiday. For those that celebrated Passover this week, of course, just much love and respect to our Jewish family as well as all of our family, regardless of your faith traditions. This is a special time of year. The weather's getting better. And, it's springtime, fam. It's a time of reawakening. And I challenge all of us to even if things are going tough for you, to trust that the lessons that you're supposed to learn from these experiences is going to come to you. It's going to come to you when God feels like it, but it's going to come to you. Trust me. Thank you all so much. Stand with our friends in Tennessee. This is, our democracy is truly on a thread, and it's just too important to let it go, and it's not good for anybody. And your family and children are, you got to stand up for them because they're the ones on the front line at this point of this crisis. Thank you all so much. Have a blessed holiday. And next week when we talk, man, we'll talk about this. My Sixers will be in the playoffs. That'll be exciting. Have a great weekend, family.